Alrighty, welcome to the channel. So instead of doing the video in the morning, which would be Thursday morning, I have to be in Syracuse to have my cardiac doctors go through and check my chest and my leg and everything else. So I thought I'd do it this afternoon and I'll just schedule it to drop in tomorrow. So what are we talking about today? Mark brought up a question on, is there a certain software out there that can do everything it needs to do for our industry? And we'll touch on that and some other things when it comes to how to do parts lookups and where to get your parts and so forth. So hang tight. Alright, so welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric and this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Wednesday again, but this is going to be broadcast Thursday morning. But today we're talking about the different tools that we have at our disposal when it comes to, doing a parts lookup. Where to get our parts. Is there a software out there that can keep track of customers and when they had their last service and when their next service is due? Billing, that's another big one. Is there a certain way software to do that? But the big thing is it comes down to money. The more you get out of a software, the more you're going to pay. I'll be honest with you. And I've got an IT background. So what I ended up doing for our business is I just simply went into Excel and created our own invoice and our own tracking method of our customers. Excuse me. And I wasn't so concerned about making sure that they came back every year because it's totally up to them, right? But for the most part, my customers come back every spring or every fall to have their service work done on their equipment. From lawnmowers to weed eaters to chainsaws to snow blowers, the list goes on. But the biggies are going to be your lawnmowers, your tillers, and your snow blowers. Those are going to be like a yearly service. Your chainsaws, weed eaters, and all that stuff, you normally don't see those unless the customer is having problems with them. So you can do it a number of different ways. You can track. Well, let's put it out first that you have Square and you have QuickBooks. QuickBooks will help you track the inventory you have on hand, your customers, billing. You can set it up where you can add in, but it's what I say, garbage in, garbage out, which means whatever you put in there is what you're going to get back, right? You can't rely on that software to make all the right decisions for you. So, and it also gives the ability to collect money. Square is the same way. Square, you can collect money. You can keep track of all this stuff. And I would recommend either one of them if you're not comfortable with using Excel and creating your own databases and stuff and your own customer lists and billing. And I have a invoice of how I do it for every customer, and it goes to the next number, next number, next number. And you can do it where it inserts the date for that date, so forth. So the next thing is how do I do a parts lookup, and then where do I source my parts? Well, that's really two different things, right? The first thing is how do I know what parts do I need, and how do I make sure I get the right parts? And hopefully you're not dealing with what I call Frankenstein machines, which are mix matches of where somebody had taken and swapped an engine or this or that. Most of your machines out there, you have a model number that comes off the chassis, and then there's going to be a model number that comes off the engine. And if you need engine parts, you're going to have to get the number off the engine. If you're looking for any chassis parts, deck issues, belts, and all that, it's going to come off the chassis. Now, most of them are located right underneath the seat for a lot of your MTD Cup Cadets and all that. But if you look around, you will find a model number either there or underneath the hood. Those are the two places that they like to keep them. And what I've noticed within the last 10 years, like for your more common parts, if you lift your hood up on your lawnmower, it'll tell you right there the part numbers that you're looking for, let's say spindles, deck belt, drive belt, for your more common, quick moving parts. But if you're looking for a part that's on that chassis, you need to take that model number and write it down, okay? And what I recommend is just go over to Google. Google's going to be your best friend. Stick that model number in there and just hit search. And you're probably going to bring up Parts Tree, Jacks. There's a couple other ones. Repair Clinic. And use their parts lookup, their catalogs of breakdowns to find out what part you need and the part number. Once you have the part number, now you can go a couple different directions. You can go to eBay or Amazon, which is normally probably the cheapest route. If you want to deal with the aftermarket companies, you're going to have to be legit, which means sales tax number. You're going to have to be a repair shop because those guys aren't interested in you selling to somebody else retail. They're more looking for you to use those parts in your shop. But as long as you have a shop, they don't care if you're selling retail as well. So Sten's, Rotary are the two that I would recommend for the aftermarkets. Now, if you want to deal with the OEM for the Briggs, Cub Cadet, and all them, now you're going to have to go to a distributor for those brands. And again, you're going to have to be legit. And a lot of times, in order to get access to their systems and their parts, they're going to ask you to buy so much money in parts in the beginning to get established so that you're just not a fly-by-night. And there are different levels, whether it's the aftermarket companies or the OEMs, of the more you buy per year, the better the discount you get. That's just the way they all work, right? And then you could take advantage of their spring preseason orders. I would kind of be leery on that because I've seen stuff that sold really, really well. The following year, do nothing. Be dead in the water. So, and the other thing that you're looking at too now is the manufacturers are phasing out a lot of the parts for the older machines. And right up to like 3-4 years, and then they're phasing them out. And you say, well, why is that? And I think the biggest thing is that the Chinese compete so heavily against it that they can't make the money on the parts anymore. And the manufacturers used to make pretty good money on those parts, right? So now they got to make up the money somewhere. And that's to keep you in a new machine every 3 to 4 years because you can't get parts to fix your old one. That's my take on it. But the key is finding the model number off that machine first, and then taking it and going to Google, and then from Google, whether it be Jacks or Parts Tree, replacement parts, they all have breakdowns. And if it's a Sears, you can go right to the Sears website and they give you breakdowns of what it is, what is the part number for the part you need. Once you have the part number, then you, like I say, eBay and Amazon are probably going to be the cheapest. eBay is probably going to be the cheapest. And I say that because the Chinese sellers, China is not interested in whether they make a profit or not. Their goal is to put everybody else out of business that's in that market so they don't have any competition. That's always been the way they do things. But for you, the consumer, is good because you're not paying much for that part. And you can mark that part up some, putting it on your customers' machines. Now, if you get a customer that wants OEM only, well, you're going to have to deal with OEM only. And if you're not big enough, or you're not what I call legit, with a tax ID and stuff like that, these OEM companies aren't even going to want to talk to you. So you may end up having to go through somebody that's already a dealer in that area to get those parts, or a local retail shop that's selling enough parts for, let's say, Briggs, that they're carrying a lot of the OEM Briggs, and you can go to them and pick it up, okay? And then the other thing you asked, Mark, was like maintenance schedules. How do you track maintenance schedules? We don't. Pure and simple. I mean, we know that from year to year to year, certain customers are bringing their machines. And just because we replaced the belt last year doesn't mean that we don't have to replace the belt this year. So I'm less concerned about that. The only thing I'd be concerned about, and we keep a copy, a paper trail, on a file, okay? And if a customer has a machine come in and we put belts on it, and the belt blows off from it, their first mowing, then we need to find out what went wrong. Because if we put the belt on, did they hit something, or what caused it? And if it's something that we did, then we're going to replace the belt. If the belt didn't get replaced because it looked pretty decent, and then halfway through the summer it blows the belt, I can look back and say, okay, we didn't replace that belt. So I mean, it's not like we try to save our customers money, but if you get a belt that's weather checked and this and that, get rid of it, put a new one on. Just going to save you a lot of heartache, because I don't like to see repeat business from the same customer in the same year, unless it's something totally, something on their end that they caused an issue to develop. There are softwares out there that can track that, but again, it's how much money do you have to spend. I think QuickBooks would cover pretty much all of that, from maintenance schedules to inventory to assets to billing, you name it, that you can make QuickBooks work for you. And there's 3 different levels anyways. I would go with the mid-level because it just gives you more stuff to work with. But again, it's all about garbage in, garbage out. And whatever you put in for numbers, names, and this and that is what's going to spew out at this end. If you're putting in the wrong information here, then good chances are you're going to get the wrong information over here, right? Again, I don't really emphasize with our business of what maintenance schedule we've done in the past with our customer machine, because every time they come in, they get the same bumper to bumper as a customer that we've never seen dropping a mower off for us to take a look at. So hopefully that's helped you, Mark. And what I find is, if you have a question, good chances are there's a bunch of other people that have the same questions but really don't want to ask. If any of you guys out there have got, where you're using a certain software and it's worked well for you, please speak up so that these guys here on the channel have access to those things. Again, with us, I just sat down and I built everything we needed right through Excel. And that's all I've ever used as far as when it comes to the business. We started with QuickBooks, but it didn't work because at the time when we were doing eBay, we had well over 800,000 parts to draw from, and there wasn't a software out there big enough to be able to handle that big of an inventory. So on that note, you guys have a great Thursday. Again, I'm going to be most of the day with my doctors, and maybe they'll take some stitches out. I don't know. And we'll get you here bright and early Friday morning. Again, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you here Friday morning.